All right. We're recording too. See, it says live. There we go. All right. It's 7:01. We'll call our meeting to order. Anybody have anything new for the agenda?
Nope.
No? All right. All right. We'll move on to 4.1, our minutes from August 24th. Have a motion?
I'll move them.
Thank you, Joel. Have a second? Thank you, Rob. Discussion? I didn't see anything that jumped out at me.
No, look good.
All right, all in favor? Passes 5-0. All right, let's move on to the fun. Let's move on to 5.1 core zoning.
There we go.
You guys want to start with how your pop-ups have gone?
I'll talk about Saturday a little bit. We set up the tent in the rain in front of the entrance to town office, and we were busy all, for the 2 hours we were there. We were busy. We had people who kept on stopping in, asking questions. Tor was there, Ben was there, and we had some really good discourse. We answered a lot of questions. And there was some confusion that we alleviated, which was good. One of the questions was about someone who had a building on Route 1 in the rural highway district, and they were concerned that because of the building the building specs that we have in the new code, they were going to have to change their building. And we explained to them that existing buildings, you don't have to change it, and they were pretty happy. And we showed them the ways that they could expand, and I think they left pretty happy with all their questions answered. So that was one of the good ones. And we had a couple other people come through, and I think it was good. What do you think, Tor?
Yeah, I thought it was not too specific. Most of the questions were pretty general. I think I had 4. I think there was 4 people that I attended that I wrote down. I don't know. I turned my back for a few minutes. I'm not sure if there was an extra one that you talked to, Joel, or not. But
no, I think it was just the 4.
Yeah, it was pretty general. I think it was on Saturday. It was more or less, what is this, mean to my district? How's it different from the existing code? So I think that was, it was pretty broad. I think broad overview, except for the one that you just mentioned on rural. That was the most specific, I think.
Yeah.
About the roof pitch. And then on, so you want to work back? Who's on, I guess I was there on Thursday with Brian. That was a little more specific. I jotted those 3, Thursday and Tuesday. There was 3 inquiries altogether, 2 on Tuesday and then 1 on Thursday. So I jotted notes down on those, but those are very specific, and some specific exceptions to the setback standards, things like that, some of the metrics.
So do we want to do this again? We're doing Tuesday and Thursday tour this week.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, somebody signed up for tomorrow at noon. I'll be out there to meet with somebody tomorrow. So as far as Thursday, I don't know yet.
And I'd add, I think these have been a great way to hear people's concerns and to answer questions. I think we finally figured out how to do this stuff. I think this is a really effective, effective process. So I think we should plan to continue it at least through the public hearing.
Yeah, so you want to continue this Saturday?
Yes.
I agree. I think I think it's great. It's working. It's working, for, for me to learn what people are, looking for, and I think people are getting one-on-one time or two-on-one time with some people that know how to use the code. So
Joe.
Another thing that that I've been doing, everyone that I talked to, I went through with them the rest of the process and went over the public hearing we're going to have, and then also the special town meeting. And everyone I talked to, I made them put it in their phones and said, you got to come because it's going to be a lot of fun. It's outside. We're going to have party lights up. One of the concerns that I did hear from somebody was they were a little concerned about being under 110. And so what I told them is I have the one that we've been using for the pop-ups, the little 10 by 10. I've ordered another 10 by 10 just because I want to have two for my work stuff. So I'm going to bring that other one, and then my neighbors, Morning Dew Farm, I think they have some tents that I can borrow too. So I was just going to have a bunch of those sort of that I could cluster around the outside of the bigger tent if we do have some weather, so that people can be even more socially, distanced if that's what they feel more comfortable with. And then, I did say we were looking into the possibility of the FM transmitter thing, but I didn't know how that was going to work out. So, but I did assure everyone that we were going to do everything we could to make everyone feel comfortable and safe, and keep everyone as separate as possible. So, I think that'll be a good addition too. So I'm planning on doing that.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any more pop-ups. My last one blew away in the last windstorm we had.
I can't believe Amazon had any left. I ordered one this morning, and it was actually like a lot cheaper than it usually is. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, so got another one coming.
Yeah, no, I like the one you have that you've been using. That's a nice one.
Yeah, it's a good one. And the one I'm ordering is actually beefier and it costs less. So I mean, it's pretty good. So.
Yep. I guess, I don't know if John wants us to ask this question or not, but what are you guys thinking if we're going to special town meeting vote-wise? Thinking secret ballot or just a hand raise? Just so we kind of know how to write that first question. Go ahead, Joel.
I was thinking if we did secret ballot, it would be easier if we had people spread out. And in normal circumstance, I would say hand raise is fine because we can just count. But I think with the, if people are in separate tents, or if we figure out the FM transmitter thing, which would be really nice, because then it would be a real broad spectrum. Maybe people wouldn't be able to communicate as easily, but they would be able to be there, present, listen, and still cast their ballot. So that's what I was kind of leaning towards. It's gonna be dark too, so.
It is. I agree. I think that would be easier.
Yeah, I think ballot, is probably the easiest to hand out, to collect, and for however separate people are, I think that's going to be the most effective.
Okay. All right, so let them format our first question then, because that's always the first question. How are we voting? So,
yeah.
So just secret ballot. Just again, secret ballot. That works. All right, so where do we want to jump in on this code? We've got some notes. Tor's notes started with rural and changing the road frontage.
So I had distributed the beginning, and we talked about trying to have a list of questions and answers that we will end up posting. And I did a first pass of that. And I think I asked John, and he hasn't gotten any feedback on those, but I think eventually in the near future, I think we want to have somebody polish that off and post it on the website when we think it looks good. But at the end of that, I put a list of clarifications and fixes that were things that, based on conversations with other people and based on conversations among us, have been identified as things that just aren't clear and are fairly straightforward changes that I think we should ask, I mean, I think what we talked about before was the idea of having a red line version of the code at our next meeting, so we can say, yes, we approve these changes, and this is the version we're bringing to the vote. And I think that this outlines the things that we're going to want to get language changed on. At least those are the things that have come up to date, and there may be other things, but.
All right, scanning through your notes now that you sent out. That's when you're talking about, the one you sent the other day?
Yeah, it end of last week.
Joel?
I was just gonna say, I think, I read through Rob's notes, and I discussed, with everyone who was present at the some of the other pop-ups, some of the questions that came up. And I think one of the things that we really do need to clarify, and I think it's more of a clarification, not really a change, is just where we're measuring the setbacks. And I think that's an important thing. And I think where we can, and it's easy and makes sense, I think just the center line of the road makes the most sense for measuring those things. That doesn't work in other areas like the downtown, and perhaps some of the other areas with sidewalks in some of those districts. But I think at least in the rural and the highway, rural and highway commercial, I think going from the center line of the road would be just a clarification. It's not really a change. It's just saying this is where we're measuring it, so it's not confusing. People don't think that it's additional to whatever DOT has, because the DOT setbacks are kind of all over the place. They're different on different properties, and the road has moved in some cases. And I think that's probably the most straightforward way to deal with that.
Yeah, it's something a line people can see, so to measure from, but depends where you are. If you go down by, I was looking at it earlier and talking to John, if you're at Foster's, the edge of the right of way is the edge of the road. And if you go to the other side of the road where Left-Handed Trader used to be, that easement ends at pretty much the front of his building, because it's about 200 feet. So even at that point, center of the road makes that, I don't know how that would really fare out. Because if you took that section and went 100 feet back from center line, it's probably to Bobby's building, probably a little beyond. And if you went 100 feet the other way, you're still in the middle of the easement. So, go ahead, Thor.
Yeah, I think I think Joel said rural and SD rural highway. I think really, it really only needs to be applied to the rural highway. That clarification.
Uh-huh.
I think in the other districts coming, springing the setback off of the primary frontage line makes sense. It's consistent with how it's done now. But I agree, Brian's, what you're saying is that the right of way kind of jogs all over the place along Route 1 there. And I think it would be hard to get a handle. It's just not apparent what to spring the setback line from. You'd need a surveyor every time you wanted to just sort of do some loose, some loose figuring on, where you can put a building out there. So
Right.
Yellow line's always constant. Makes sense to me. So.
Joel?
And I just add that the as far as town is concerned, we just have to figure out a consistent way to measure from. And if there are additional easements on the property, we're not responsible for figuring that out for each property. So if we put a line, we say you can build here, and there's a DOT easement that is contrary to that, that would supersede what we had put out there as a thing, and you would have to comply with that as well. And that's one of those things where it's always on the, it's the burden of the the landowner to make sure that they're in compliance with all the easements on their property. We're just trying to regulate based on, what we heard at the pop-ups and where, where keeping that character and respecting those setbacks that we've worked through on the committee level. So.
And I would say, I think the language that we have for frontage works everywhere except for a rural highway.
Yeah.
And I think that we do, I think there is a case we probably want to clean up some of the frontage and setback language. There are many definitions that I think it would be worth tasking Ben with just cleaning that up, because it can be confusing because there are so many variants on the language that I think that can be cleaned up. But fundamentally, the language works, except it doesn't really work in rural highway.
Mhm.
And I think that the center line of the roadway makes sense. And the second piece is that making it clear that the natural screen is within that setback, that they're not additive, because you could potentially read the current language as thinking you have to have a 200-foot setback and then you have to have a 200-foot screen. And the intent is that we want people to maintain the screening that's within that 200-foot setback. So we're not being additive. And I think that's another clarification that's easy to make.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can't see you though.
Yeah, my computer went fluky for a minute and I lost my video spinning. I have an issue with the setback in rural highway, 200 feet and then a 200-foot wide buffer. I get it's all within. I've talked to some of you guys about this. I had some good conversations about it. I just think that's, even if you go from center line in 200 feet, that's a long ways in to somebody's property for that setback. And I think a 200-foot buffer is a little crazy too. I think we could cut that buffer size down probably to 50 feet, and you're never going to see anything through that buffer of a level 4 buffer on Route 1 through 50 feet. It allows people to still have some clearing or whatever is there. But I would almost think we could cut that setback back some. Not sure the right way to do it, but there's got to be a better compromise in there than just cutting that deep into people's properties. Because that's just, we're giving away acreage, or we're taking away acreage from people. If I'm buying a piece of property in Route 1, I'm paying the extra price for that road frontage, and now I'm losing it. I'm losing a lot of it to the setback. And again, it depends where you are and where the road lies for what you gain. Because like if you take the old CMP building, they're good because it flows the other way. But if you go across the road, it cuts deeper in.
Mm.
And I think we need to look at that. I think we need to find some compromise.
Well,
so
I think that the idea was that in the rural highway district, that there are a lot more uses enabled than in the old code.
mhm.
And like many things in this code, there are trade-offs. The balance was, we want to enable many more uses, but we also want to preserve the character. And that's where the balance came in the creation of the rural highway district. I think that clarification that we're saying, that the setback starts at the center line of the roadway, and making clear that we're talking about maintaining a natural screen within that setback. We're not saying that you need to have a screen beyond the setback. We're saying it's within that area. I still think that's reasonable, and a reasonable balance with the additional uses that are enabled.
Isn't that screening 200 feet wide?
I think the language I suggest, we can talk about, I don't think I think tonight what we should try to do is get an intent in mind, and then we can direct Ben to craft language that meets the intent that we're giving him. I think if we try to, I know that I've been in many meetings where trying to determine one number could take 3 hours.
Sure.
And so I think that's, I don't want to get into that, but the language I put in the clarification fixes was just that you need to maintain the natural screen that's within that setback. If it's a field, obviously we're not saying that people need to plant a forest and they can't do anything until a forest is there. We're really talking about maintaining the natural appearance that's there now. So I think we might want to put a minimum in there, but the intent is that they're going to maintain what's there and what's within that setback. So if there could be a scenario where because of the right of way, there isn't a lot of screen left in this scenario because the right of way is very wide. Maybe there's a field and then there's some trees, but the 200-foot mark is at a place where there isn't a lot of forest. That's sort of that's the balance here. I think so. I don't know. We may want to have a minimum depth of screen, but I don't think we necessarily need it because the intent is that you're maintaining what's there.
Joel.
One thing I just did, I just sent you guys a photo. So I just sent a photo to your email, and it's a picture of me standing at my property line up on the hill and looking down past my house. There's a Ford pickup truck right on the edge of the road, and that's 220 feet. And so I just wanted to give perspective as to what 220 feet looks like. And I'd mentioned that the buffer being 200 feet, it's not ever actually going to be 200 feet anyway, because DOT is gonna, you got to remember they control whatever part they have, and they're not going to want trees right up on the edge of the road. So you're probably going to lose at least 100 feet of that anyway. So if you set the setback to 50, you're going to have no natural screening at all, built into the whole, that whole area. And, again, when you read the code, if there's no natural screening that's already existing, all you have to do is there's a section there where you go to planning board and you discuss whatever it is. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this code, is that we have to remember all these things that we're discussing right now under normal circumstances would require going to planning board first, which I have 2 projects going right now. Both of them have to go to planning board review. Under this proposed ordinance, neither one of them would have to do that. And so that requires a minimum of 1 meeting, most likely 2 meetings, which pushes my construction time up to 2 months on 2 projects that I'm supposed to be doing before it gets too cold and crazy. So I think the thing to remember here is that there even in the areas where this code says no, there's still options to deal with those issues through the traditional way you would normally do it, which is going before the planning board. We're just eliminating 95% of those cases. So we're making it incredibly easy for everyone to do things just with the CEO approval, which is, I think, the way things should be. And that's why the rules are as detailed as they are, because they set it up so that anyone can do these projects. Any landowner has the freedom to do these projects without having to go to a subjective group of people that may or may not understand it, or may have a different perspective on what they think, how they interpret the language in there. And we've done a pretty good job of keeping that language clear. And I mean, I think the numbers could be tweaked at some point. I would rather put this thing live and see where the issues actually are, and deal with them on a case by case basis. Because again, you know, a year ago when we sort of pushed this this concept forward of revamping the code and making it work better, when I talked about it, I talked about the framework. And again, I think the framework works really well. And I think all of the metrics work really well, but there might be something that turns out to be clunky. And so until we see what we actually have in the real world with a real world project, we're not going to know. And we're just going to be taking 25 feet off this, 100 feet off this. And it's not going to really reflect or respect any of the work that was done, the input that we got. And it's just going to be us sitting in a meeting right here, just throwing random numbers out. And I don't think that's the right way to do it. So I would say the clarifications that we have, I think are good, but I would be wary of changing a lot of the actual numbers in here without a real precedent.
Right, Tor?
Yeah, so I agree with that, Joel. I think it's a slippery slope of starting to review all of the, or at least some of the metrics, the setbacks. You know, because why are we looking at that and not the others? The question on Brian's question on the 100-foot or what the setback is in a rural highway. I think we got to remember that, like Rob said, the uses have expanded there. So you can do more in that district than you can as it is under rural. And also we're allowing some really large buildings. So, you know, an 80,000 square foot building is, you know, a Rennie's warehouse. You know, you don't notice Rennie's warehouse because it's about 350 feet back from the road. But would you really want that 100 feet from the road? It would feel like a wall as you're driving by it. So I think we got to be careful about, you know, just sort of, you know, coming up with a new setback number. And I just want to remind everybody that we, you know, we've had, this process goes back, you know, 7 years, 6.5 years, something like that. So, you know, the town has invested in planners. It's gone through 2 committees, you know, the metrics, the numbers, the setbacks. That's been hashed out, you know, I think thoroughly. It's, you know, I think none of the numbers in the code are sort of just sort of arbitrary. So I think there's some thought basis behind all of the setback numbers. So I think what we should be doing tonight is, in concept, you come up with an agreement that we're going to clarify things, clarify the language, you know, make these changes. The center of the line, I think, was the intent of this current language, but it was never carried through correctly. So things like that need to be clarified. The buffer, again, I think, you know, that again, that's, the language didn't come together on that. So I don't think we're really changing the concept. I think we're clarifying that. So, you know, I think that's, to me, that's what the task is tonight, is to, in concept, say, you know, let's clarify these items, you know, what we're hearing. And as we go through this one last time, try to catch what we can, and then, you know, bring it forth. I would like to see something by next Tuesday when we have the next meeting that's a redlined document that we can put on the line. So,
Right, we definitely need that by next Monday, because the week from Thursday is the hearing, so.
right. So, yeah. Monday's
2
Labor
sorry,
Day.
that's 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Not next week. Today's the 31st. I'm a week ahead of myself. Go ahead, Wanda.
I was just going to say, I agree with everybody. I think, the last time just before it went to vote, we were changing things right up to the final minute, and we really got crucified for that because everybody never felt, that was one of the complaints, is it was never complete so that somebody could really see what the final document was. So I think, we're going down a slippery slope if we start, making big changes. Certainly clarifications and things, I think is certainly acceptable, but I don't think we want to be changing major things, because then I think, we're right back to where we were 2 years ago, when that was one of the big reasons that I think people said they didn't vote for it, because there wasn't a final document that was consistent for them to read and look at. So I think it's important that we don't do too much wholesale changes to it between now and putting it out there for the vote.
I'm coming from, I'm the only person on this board that wasn't involved with the code at one time or another. So I said, I'm just looking at it now because I purposely not spent a lot of time on it until recently. Yeah, and these are things I'm just picking up as somebody that's not invested 6 years of my life into this project. So, and just seeing from the landowner's point of view, what that would do to me and how aggravated I would be if that was affecting my property. So go ahead, Wanda.
But I think it's important that as we sell this, this is a document that is a living document that can be changed fairly easily compared to other codes that we've had. And I think that's the intent of it, is that, as we see things that don't work going forward, we will be able to bring those back and change them. And I think that's important for people to know, because as we've said from the beginning, we're not going to get this perfect the first time. Hopefully we'll hit a sweet spot someplace that, most of the people will agree with us, but certainly there's going to be changes that are going to have to be made down the road. We're going to find things that didn't work in that district or whatever, or district lines or something. But, that's the beauty of this document, is it can be changed fairly easily.
All right.
I just want to add one comment to Wanda's statement there. And, there's language in this code that's for non-conforming structures or lots. So there's a path forward in this code for what you want to do. It may not be as easy as going in and getting a permit, but there's always a path forward in any code. Hopefully there is. So this one, I think, provides a path. And not only that, but it provides an easy path for non-conforming structure. So anything that would be within the setback, and I think it's a pretty generous, permit process, which would be to I think it's double, you can double the size of your footprint within the non-conformity. So I just want to add that. I think it's fair. I think that's what it is. It's fair.
All right, Joel.
And I'd just say that, sort of jump off that point and just say that the thing I like about this code is that whenever you hit a roadblock, there's sort of a workaround built into it. So if the number one thing that you want to do, you come in, you look at it and you say, oh, I can't do that. Built into the code, still, even before you get to the planning board process, there are ways to actually make your property almost more valuable. And there's ways to do it. It's not just a hard no. And that's what I do. I build houses and I renovate houses. So I'm always confronted with the situation where I have to work within these parameters, and I have to develop a way around to achieve my goal. And that's my biggest frustration as a builder when I look at other codes in other towns, that they just say no, or they just say, you have to go to planning board and you have to work around their schedule, and you have to take 2 months, 3 months out of your building schedule to do this, when when you read the intent of what the code actually is, you're in complete compliance. But all it takes is 2 or 3 grumpy people that subjectively, not objectively, look at it and say, no, I don't like that. And you're done. You can't do it. And I think that's what's really nice about this is that you do have some hard lines, but even those hard lines, there's ways to work around it without even going to that planning board level. And again, with the nonconformity, that was the big thing that I think I wasn't involved in the last committee's work. But when I read through the new document, I think that was the part that appealed to me the most, is that was the sort of sticking point for me the last time we presented this code, is that it seemed to me there were a lot of gray areas that weren't allowing, the nonconformity that's created whenever you change a code. And this code really does that. It does a great job of that. And the committee did a wonderful job of really addressing all those issues, because it was written by people in the community who see it and understand it. And I think that really works. So.
All right, so the only change we want to make in rural highway then is just earmark that the center line of the highway is the beginning point.
And the point that the screening is within that setback, it's not additive to it.
Right, yeah, I never read it that way. I always read it
Okay.
as included in it, so. Yeah, no, I knew we weren't talking 400 feet. I knew it was all within that 200 feet, so.
I think just again, a clarification just to make sure it's understood.
All right. So I only had one other question in the rural zone itself for road frontage. You guys are gonna hate me. Where'd the 250 come from? When you guys brought this to the board, I don't know, 10 months ago, maybe a year ago now, and sold me on the idea of going from 100 feet, it was to 200 feet, not 250.
It is 200 feet.
No, it's 250.
It was always 250.
Yeah, 250.
It wasn't the night you guys brought this to the Board of Selectmen, before you guys were selectmen, and sold me on the idea of going, because originally today it's 100 in rural and 200 in South Newcastle. And you guys sold me on 200. Go ahead, Joel.
I'll disagree with you on that, because I remember it being 250, because my lot is still is 220 feet. So it's just an additional 20 feet. And that was always what I remembered, is that it's still, my lot is still non-conforming in this current code, because I have a 1 acre lot with 220 feet of road frontage. And if I had 100 feet of road frontage, I would be standing with that picture that you saw. I would be standing beyond the corner of my house looking at that Ford pickup truck. So, I really think that the big push was going to 1 acre all over town to make more land available to people. And the 250 foot of actual road frontage is, if that's on the direct road. And again, there's a workaround there so that we can start accessing more of the backland that we have, which is really the best for the town development and just everything, the tax base, everything. If we can start from a developer standpoint, if you can start working back from the road, you're gaining a lot as far as just basing everything on road frontage, cramming as much as you can into your road. But it was 250. I mean, we can look back through the minutes, but I know it was 250 at that meeting.
I swear I remember 200 that night, and I thought, okay, 200 makes sense.
I think
my lot's like 248. So
the 250, was, all the things like the lot coverage table on the district page all depend on that 250. I think that there are a lot of pieces that if we start changing a number like that, we can't just change that number because other things are dependent on that. And we'll have to make wholesale changes to the whole district. So that number alone is one piece of the puzzle. And I think that I'll also offer in that questions and answers document, I laid out, if you've got a lot that's, that you can't split two, you don't have 500 feet, so you can't split two lots that are on the main road. How do I add a lot? And the language in the code, it makes it pretty easy. All you need to do to create a new insular lot is to have a deeded right of way and put in a driveway to the new lot. That driveway will give you frontage to enable you to build a house on that second lot. So we've made it easier to add a lot behind. So I don't think it's onerous. I don't think that 250 feet is onerous because it's easy, as Joel said, to develop behind.
All right, go ahead, Joel.
And the other thing in the 1 acre, which I think this was something that in all the pop-ups that we did initially and everything that we've heard from people, there's a big confusion about what you can do with secondary dwelling units. And a lot of people have secondary dwelling units on smaller acreage lots and didn't realize that it's actually not allowed right now under our current code. And I think that having that ability adds an incredible amount of value to a property. Being able to have an in-law apartment, a tiny house there, some place that you can actually create some rental income as you age in place. However it is, I think that right there, being open to every single person who has a lot in the town of Newcastle, I think is a huge plus. And again, you have, any lots that exist right now, they're grandfathered in. You can still do what you want with it. It's just, we're talking about new lots, and trying to develop new lots in a smart way is in a smart way that's in the best interest of the town and the taxpayer. Though they might not see that at that time, it opens so many more doors than we currently have. So I think the 250 is great. Like I said, being someone with a 1 acre lot and the road frontage that I have, if I had anything less than I have right now, my property would not work, and my property would be worth, literally half of what it is with the house on it. So I would say definitely that metric really works and makes sense.
Just one other thing, Brian, you asked where that number come from. The part of the consideration for the 250 is the expanded use. So as we were talking about in the rural highway too, there's so much more uses that are permitted in the rural now. So the thought is, give and take. So, some of these, some of the uses, if you look through the table, what's permitted, you got to ask yourself, is 200, too close? Is 250, better? If it's your house and somebody's gonna, open a business next door. So, that was part of the driver in the 250. Again, it's just, it's not an arbitrary number. It's there's some considerations for use.
All right. Wanda, did you raise your hand or?
No, sorry.
That's right. All right. So it sounds like that needs to stay without doing major changes anyways, so. All right, so where do we want to go from here, guys? We want to get red lines. I know the other day Ben was talking about with you, Tor, about changing throughputs, throughways rather, not throughputs, throughways.
Oh, thoroughfares.
Thoroughfares, there you go.
Yeah, again, that's not a conceptual change. It's changing the language so it's clear. Thoroughfare, as it's used throughout the code, it's one of those terms. It's again sounds like it's planning speak, and nobody can really relate to what exactly a thoroughfare is. So, and I think it's so broad that it doesn't have a concise definition. So Ben had an idea about going through and revising that so it either reflects driveway, a road, um, or what else? Rock.
Driveway, private road, and public road,
That's it. Yes.
as defined in our driveway and entrance ordinance.
Yeah.
Our new ordinance. Yeah, I think thoroughfare had a lot of meaning in the character code, and it kind of is a holdover from that. And I think it'll be a lot cleaner to take it out.
Yeah.
Right. So what else do you guys have for changes that we need to get done so we can have a red line for next Monday?
So I think I want to mention the one map change that I think we should accept. And you know what it is the owner has broken off a section of the lot that I think if it were in place back when the maps were being created, the current zoning map probably would have been under commercial use. It's clearly it's clearly in a commercial zone. So
Highway commercial, right?
highway commercial, yeah. So and I talked to Jim Murphy today. I called him. He actually is aware of that lot. There's a lot number to it, so it's already in Trio. So it'll be on the next commitment in April. But as of right now, it's basically in limbo. And I think if if we can get the map changed, we're not changing anything in concept. We're just I think changing something that would have to be changed anyway.
All right, Joel.
Yeah, I agree with that change, and it makes more sense, especially in looking at the tax commitment end of things, that it would be registered in that new thing, and that's how it would be looked at tax wise. So I think it makes sense to do that now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you guys on that.
Yes.
All right. What else?
So there were a number of other small items. When Rem and Tor were talking last Saturday, they realized that on all district pages, shed roof pitch was listed as 5 and 12, like all the other roofs, and I think that's a mistake that wasn't changed. Really, they thought it should be 2.5 and 12, and I think that's just something that slipped through the cracks. A person came to us and pointed out that the bar and tavern use didn't have any standards. Again, got left out, but I think we can just copy the standards from restaurant and cafe. I thought in restaurant and cafe, we might want to add language under the live entertainment use. There, it references the nuisance language that uses that could have an impact in the neighborhood. It's a standard zoning nuisance language, and we should probably add that to if restaurant or cafe have live entertainment. There was just a very minor thing in site standards under fields, or if you'll remember, if there's an existing field, we just require that a development go to the planning board, and the planning board can ask the applicant to consider development patterns that have a lesser impact on the field, and that excludes commercial agricultural uses. And someone thought that could mean an existing commercial agriculture use being converted to some other new use. And So the clarification is to make it clear that that's only for new, it doesn't apply to new commercial agricultural uses. That was a pretty minor item. And then the other issue was about life safety. I spoke with Clayton, and he was concerned that projects have been coming up that he doesn't know about and doesn't get a chance to review. So there should be some language in the administrative section to make sure that projects give the fire chief an opportunity to review them, to make sure that there aren't issues that need to be addressed.
And the rest of the safety stuff points to fire marshal, right, as default?
Well,
Yeah.
that's building code stuff, but in our code, just to make sure that in the process, things don't fall through the cracks.
And I think that would only apply to commercial projects, regardless of size. Not residents, but
Right.
maybe multi-residential units. Something like a 6-unit condo, like the standard that's built. I think you want Clayton to have a look at that, before it's approved.
And I think we can put some general language in there now just to make sure that it doesn't fall through. And again, that's probably something that we'll refine over time, but it's a good thing to have some language in there now.
All right. Joel, go ahead.
No, I just say I agree with that. The couple commercial jobs I've done, the speaking with the fire chief has always been part of it. And, again, the fire marshal itself is sort of a separate thing, but they kind of work together. And if the fire chief shows up and the fire marshal hasn't been contacted, then they sort of remind the project manager or contractor or owner to do that. So it's a good thing.
Anything else?
I think that's all that's come up so far. And again, pretty small clarifications, but I think just good things to clean up.
All right. So you're going to get that off to Ben then? So he makes some changes if he doesn't already know?
Yes. Yeah. I think we'll tell him if he has any questions, he has to watch this.
Right. He's probably already watching. Knowing Ben.
Oh, I hope not.
What else would you do on a Monday night?
Right. What else does it do in Newcastle on a Monday?
COVID.
Right. Anything else?
I think the main thing I'd say is just to get, let's make sure everyone knows that we're continuing to do the pop-up sessions, and we love having people come in and tell us their concerns, and we can. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot by trying to answer people's questions. I mean, a lot of these clarifications came from questions that people had, and then we had to think about, well, what were we really trying to do here? And it's like, oh, this doesn't read the way it should to get the intent that we had. So I think it's been great. I think it's been helpful to the people who've come in, and it's been really helpful to us.
Okay. So this week we're going to do Tuesday and Thursday, the 1st and 3rd at noon to 1, right, Tor? And then we're going to do Saturday, the 5th, 10 to 12 again.
Yep.
Do we want to move to the following week and do any that week or last week before we?
I think we should say we're if people want to sign up, absolutely.
All right. So we'll just keep that open so they're aware that it's open. If they can't get to us this week, we'll still have Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday of the following week. The 8th, the 10th, and the 12th. Because if Monday night, there really won't be any changes to be made after the 14th. Because
right, but I think again,
so
it's I think it's helpful all the way around.
Oh, no, I think it's been great. I think we've answered a ton of questions. You guys did a great job.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, these questions, you can't really hammer them out in a public hearing anyway, these detailed questions. So it's better to get it, anybody that has the opportunity to ask it now, this is a good way to get a better understanding of the code.
The one other thing I'd add is that again, I took a first crack at that question and answer part. I don't know if anyone else wants to take a look at that, or we could ask Ben to finish that off and polish it since we've already asked him to do the edits. Since we're not giving him a big edit job, maybe we can ask him to polish that off, unless someone else wants to take it on. I think someone else needs to look at it as well as what I did. But I think as soon as we can get that in a state that we're happy with, I think we should post that so people can see it.
I'm sorry, Rob, what was that?
The questions and answers.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Rob sent out the other day, and then any that you might have to add to it, Tor?
Yeah, I'll have comments from Saturday's meeting.
Joe?
If it's not too onerous task on our town manager, I would think maybe if he could sort of compile it and keep it live, because he's doing all that stuff, that would be great. And then as they come in, we can answer them. How do you feel about that? Now that you're back, how was supper?
Supper was great. The kids are fed, and everyone's happy in the house. So all is well. I had these earbuds in as everyone's talking, so I was following along as it all happened. No, I'd be glad to do that. The only question I had is in terms of the audience, and I know Rob and you were trying to you had talked about a couple of different ways that you had tried to put that together, and you had tried to cite and to point them to the sections really. So I just want to. I have more of a question about format. Is that in terms of maybe not specifically how to do it, but in a broad sense, is that kind of I know not all of you probably want to look at maybe spend the detail on that, but is that kind of the format you think would be helpful, or are we headed down the right path? I guess generally, without having to give Rob too many fine-grained responses, I guess. I don't know if anyone have had a chance to kind of dig into it at all, but
I can just clarify that the intent was to take a question and then walk people through how to find the answer, and then give the answer after citing the different sections of the code. So
right.
In theory, someone, if their question isn't answered, they could follow that same methodology
right.
and get the answer themselves. That was kind of the goal.
Okay.
Maybe because Rob and I both have documents right now or write-ups, maybe we could come together with some kind of mutual format, give it to John, and then John can just keep adding to it. Does that sound?
Yeah. I think the main thing is I'd love to get it on the website as soon as we can, to really start pointing people there. And, if we're doing a weekly email blast, include that link in there so people know that that's out there. And one thing I'm also trying to differentiate for folks calling in the office is that the Saturday is a walk up. The Tuesday, Thursday, really we want to have some sort of schedule and ensure that everyone is has signed up for a time effectively to come in. So so I'm trying to differentiate those things, but I think the email blasts are great. It seems to be we're getting people paying attention. That's I think that's a good thing for us. So and certainly the more we can reach out, if there's friends, neighbors, and people who are watching this, but neighbors, friends, people you're in contact with who have questions, let's send them, kind of filter them to that. As people call the office, I'm filtering them to those meetings so that way they're coming in and maybe it isn't that the individual that say Tor is talking to he is meeting with Tor, but rather coming to one of these pop-ups where, you know, Joel and, you know, Rem are there or what have you. So, you know, it's less about the personalities as much as just trying to make connections with people, make them feel like they can come in and find out the answers to their questions. And I think these are really valuable opportunities. I hope people are taking advantage of them if they have questions out there and concerns.
Joel?
I'd just say that you know, one of the things that I thought was pretty neat about some of the, oh, I got two dogs coming in right now. Got this guy. The the beauty of being at home. You know, we helped a lot of people find answers, and again, we had to go through different sections and find specific answers to their questions. And some people were kind of overwhelmed with that. They were like, "Oh my goodness, how are we supposed to know how to do this if we want to know how to do something?" And what I kept on telling them was that you know, you can totally do it on your own, but you know, that's what we have the code enforcement officer for, to help with that kind of stuff and to answer those questions. And generally speaking, in every town that I've ever worked in, the first thing I do is I swing into the code enforcement officer's office and I sit down and I talk to him, and I talk about, if I have plans, I bring the plans, I show them what I want to do. And if I don't have plans, I discuss, you know, the scope of the project that I'm working on, and I find out what I need to do from them first. So that's the thing. We're not expecting everyone to understand exactly everything in the code, but if they have questions, or if they're going to do something, they're going to build a shed, they're going to build an addition, they're going to build a deck, they're most like, you know, just like now, you're going to come in and you're going to ask these questions, and the code enforcement officer will have questions for you. You'll give them information, and they'll tell you what, you know, how it all works. So, but Rob's sort of choose your own adventure sort of answer to the question is nice, because it gets people familiar with it, and it raises some other questions that they have, and it makes them realize what they can do. And you know, as a builder, I want people to think about all the things that they can do with their properties, you know, not what they can't do. I want them to think, oh, I can build this now, I can build this now. So it's good for me.
John, I just want to add, sorry, Brian, just want to add about the Tuesday, Thursday meetings. I think we at one point talked about having like a scheduled time slot. I don't think that works in practice. So I think it's more of like, here's an hour. It's kind of first come, first serve, and you know, and then we'll, you know, spend as much time as many people are there, you know, more or less. But you know, that's the idea.
All right, so it sounds like we're good. I think we've got a plan to move forward, get this thing put to bed. Great. Anything else? The only thing, okay, John, and Rob's questions, can you change his question of why is the town of Newcastle except from the standards of code to exempt, just so it reads right?
Got it.
We can do that. We can do that.
Do that. So, other than that, guys, if there's nothing else, we could call this a night.
All right.
Until next Monday.
Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, right?
Oh, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Right, Monday's a holiday.
And also, just as a note, a reminder, Tor is going to be you'll be speaking during during the design review meeting this week, and talking a little bit about some of these issues and how the code relates. Is that right, Tor?
That's right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. It was more directed at the well, it's live on YouTube too. So the idea was to review what's going on with the design review committee, but whoever's listening will learn something too. So, and
So
I was going to. What's that?
I was just saying, folks are watching this and have interest in those neighborhoods. Tune in on Thursday for the sequel.
Exactly, yeah, and I'll do a screen share, and just wanted to walk through really the historic district, I think, which is the SD historic, which is probably most poignant to committee there. So
That would be good. good opportunity also to remind people that we expect to create a historic preservation committee to build on this code, to make sure that we really have good historic preservation in the town. And so the work on that, in that regard, is far from done with this code. That's going to be a continuing effort that I think we as the Board of Selectmen are going to need to set that committee up sooner than later, and get that effort underway.
Mhm.
Joel,
And I'd just like to just for everyone who's watching, go over again the dates that we have coming up for this whole thing. So the public hearing is on the
17th,
17th at
7 o'clock at the fire station.
7 o'clock at the fire station. And then the special town meeting is the 29th
Yes.
at 6 o'clock at Foster's Antiques with party lights. Just saying. So just so that, just
Mirror ball and everything, Joel, are you putting one up?
what's that? I don't have one of those, but maybe that's a good arts and crafts project for me. I mean, it's 8:06 right now, and our meeting is pretty much done. So, I mean, I got all this extra time. We're not meeting until 10 o'clock discussing this, so I can start working on the mirror ball for you, Brian.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I just need the motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Take 4 as a second. And we'll say goodnight, all.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.